All right, and we are live with Metal571 and the one and only Oratory1990 for another episode of the Headphone Show. This one I've been super excited about because, well, for anybody who doesn't know, Oratory is the guy who Metal and I will go to if we have questions about headphones.
Probably just about anything.
Yeah, and in fact, I think he's been the person who has been really helpful for the Reddit community and online communities for everything to do with EQ profiles to just questions about headphones and how headphones work, all that kind of stuff. So without me, going too far into speaking for you, why don't you introduce yourself, Oratory? We don't have him on video, but we have him on voice, so you'll see it light up, and that's him. That's Oratory talking. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm already here. My name's Oratory. Obviously not my real name. You guys know me from Reddit mostly. I'm an acoustic engineer, but I'm not on Reddit as an engineer. I'm on Reddit because I'm a headphone nerd, and I do happen to work in that field, so I consider myself lucky in that.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll go into a number of topics here, and we'll talk about EQ as well. But I just wanted to give a quick overview of what we're going to cover in this episode, I guess. So we'll talk about different target curves, what you do for EQ, but then also I'd love to get into some technical discussion about I ask everybody this, but like what is detail, what is slam, all of that kind of stuff, and then we'll talk about some headphones, and then do a bit of Q&A with the stream. So you guys in the stream, hold your questions until the end, and then we'll mention it again, and then we'll get some Q&A going. But in any case, why don't I wanted to ask you. You said you're in acoustic engineering.
Right.
What exactly is that, if you can talk about that, like your specific acoustic engineering? Because I've always wondered that about your, why it is that
the main thing is, right, so there's acoustic engineering and then there's audio engineering. These two sound similar. They are similar, but they treat different fields of that. So audio engineering is the people in the recording studio, the people on a live concert show, the people in the TV room in broadcasting, people using tools to make music, to make recordings of any sort. This is audio engineering, which I did do, but don't anymore because I really don't have the time. Acoustic engineering is people creating those tools. So the people creating loudspeakers, creating microphones, creating, in some cases, creating smartphones or creating the acoustic parts of a smartphone. This is acoustic engineering, and audio engineering is then using those tools to make recordings. And my part, so what I do for a living is acoustic engineering. So I do use transducers and build applications for those in the broad sense.
And so this is why you have kind of like a fairly comprehensive body of knowledge for how all that stuff works, but then you're also a hobbyist for headphones when it comes to headphones. Is that
right?
Correct?
Yeah, this is why I'm on Reddit, correct? Because I'm a huge headphone nerd. I love headphones just as much as anybody else on our headphones or Headphone or whatever. I just happen to also work in that field, which is really lucky for me.
How did you? I wanted to ask. Well, I mean, first, how did you get into headphones to begin with? Was it just you were always into headphones? And
I mean, I was always into music. I grew up as a teenager listening to Linkin Park. As like 90% of my generation, or at least that's what it felt like. And at some point, I realized, having an iPod is cool because I can listen to music anywhere. But I'm not actually hearing what they're playing. It sounds awful. Mm-hmm. After I've seen them live once, I was like, cool. They have a bass guitar. I didn't know that. Being a stupid teenager. And then I bought what I thought were good headphones back at the time, which were, I think it was Sennheiser's CX3 something. That was I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that. And I remember, hey, I can actually hear some bass. This is awesome. And this was basically my start of doing that. So I got my first headphones that weren't complete shit. I mean, they were still not good, but they were not complete shit. And it's gone uphill ever since. So I started, doing my own band, learning about what music is, how music is actually created, creating music on my own, getting my band into a recording studio, learning how recording studios work, interning at recording studios, opening my own recording studio, studying physics, combining those to go into acoustics, interning at transducer companies, and ending up getting a job there. And all the while buying new headphones, getting new headphones, listening to new headphones, using headphones during recording production, and in the end, designing my own headphones, or designing headphones for other companies,
right?
Or helping them designing, or as they would phrase it, selling them the transducers and then not doing anything.
Would you? Is there ever an oratory phone in the future that you might want to?
Oh, I'd love to. So I don't decide what I make. I'm not the decision maker in the company. So I don't get to decide, unfortunately, who I help design the headphones. So none of the headphones that we do end up sounding exactly as I want, because I'm not there to say this sounds good. I'm just there to say, you want more bass, all right, this is how you get more bass. You want less bass, all right, then do this. You want more of this, all right, then do this. We do have a reference phone which we designed, which sounds pretty much like 95% of how I would like it, but nobody's picked up on that yet.
Are you able to talk at all about any of the companies you've produced transducers for, or is that strictly no pressure on that one?
We do have NDAs in place, so I cannot.
Yeah,
really.
Of course.
And I'm not here as a salesperson. I don't want to talk to you about my transducers because I think they're great or something. I'm here as a headphone nerd, right? So
right.
I'm not ready to push. Yeah. The company that I'm working for, because that's not really what I want to do. I'm not in marketing. Right.
Okay. So then, talking about you said you have a reference headphone there that you think sounds pretty close to what you like, and I wanted to ask you. I mean, I know that for a lot of the measurements that you do, you've used Harman as the target, right? Like or one of the Harman targets as the curve that you use, right?
Right.
Is that actually what you personally prefer, or
are you
is it just?
Are you talking about in-ear headphones or over-ear headphones right now?
Sorry, over here.
Right. For over-ear headphones, I agree with many aspects of the Harman target, not with all of them. We can have a separate discussion on where I think the Harman target needs to be improved, or where it should not be followed, or must not, or where it should be followed, or where not. Mm-hmm. So the question is, how do we interpret the Harman target? Do we need to add 500 bands of EQs and then are we allowed to then call it a perfect headphone? Because we're not, because this is not how headphones are tuned, or how we should tune headphones. But there is a lot of learning that we can do from Harman's research, and we really appreciate, we as an acoustic engineering society, or the company of acoustic engineers, we really acknowledge their effort that they've done in this regard, and there's a lot that we can learn from that.
Right.
Not so much as this is the exact frequency response that they need to follow, because forget frequency response. This is not what it's about. It's about whether or not it sounds good, and how we can objectively, how we can quantify how much it sounds good. As stupid as that sounds.
Right. As well, we can get back to where different things might need to be changed for the Harman, or where it could go in the future. Right. But I want to ask about the methodology for the process for getting to an ideal target curve. The one way to do it is you could do it the Harman method, do this sort of consumer preference kind of thing, and figure out what do people prefer. And another way is, and has been done in the past, is how where do the different pieces of the pinna and concha and ear canal and whatever how do these affect the gain, and should we be paying attention to, from a methodological standpoint, is there is one better than the other, or should we be paying more attention to one method over another method? What do you think about those?
I mean, in the end, the method doesn't really matter, right? Because in the end, when I pick up a headphone at my local store, I don't care about their process behind it. Sure, it makes for a nice story to read, and if they have decent thoughts about how this needs to be measured, and whether or not a Keymer is better than a Brüel & Kjær, as a consumer, as somebody who's using a headphone, who's maybe buying a headphone, I couldn't care less about what they think about how a headphone should sound. All I care about is, do I like it? And in the end, this is the only thing that matters. Do I like how it sounds? Yes or no, right? So
Do you
which
think...
method is better? I mean, which method produces the better results is the next question. If ideally all methods would produce the same result, namely a result that the consumer or your target demographic likes. So whichever method gets you there, that's fine.
So then it's whichever method is easier to achieve the positive result, I guess.
It's a question of how many resources you have, right? Can you afford to do large scale listening tests? Do you have the resources to do that? Then if you can, then do it. If the only thing that you have is one guy designing your headphones, like so many gaming headphone companies do, where it's literally just one acoustic engineer, then I mean he's not going to be able to do anything except maybe do 1 or 2 measurements and see if the graph looks somewhat within a specific range, and then not be able to change anything about it because the design freeze is in like 2 days. So it's whatever resources you have available.
Wow.
Right.
I just wanted to step in here and say, like, this is, it's unfortunate because this is the reality of the way the world works. Like,
oh
as an
yeah,
engineer
man.
and myself.
Sorry,
as
Metal,
well,
Metal,
I'm
you're
sure
just a little quiet. If you could.
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
just a little bit.
Do you want me to start over?
Yeah, sorry, whatever you were just saying.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure
Like
if you
somebody
were
mentioned it in the
not.
chat.
All right. No, I was saying, like, just the realism, the realistic situation that we're in is like engineers always want to be like, I want it exactly this way. It needs to be perfect. Like all these little tiny little things. Like I guess for example, on the frequency response, there can't be any peaks, any dips, nothing. But then you have it's always a competition between that.
And then the manager
like,
says, yeah, but
yes.
that costs like $50 more. So why?
Exactly.
And you're like,
Sales
yeah,
and
it sounds
marketing.
better. Yeah, what do I care?
Yep. Sales and marketing always make the
it's always a
final
fight
decisions.
between product managers and engineers.
That's the way it works.
At least from the companies that I've worked with. Yeah, and most of the time it's just lack of resources. Like you have 4 days to design a headphone. That's not enough to do anything, any listening tests. You can just do one shot, then do a rapid prototyping, change maybe one volume, add another damping mesh somewhere, and then design a freeze, and then logistics take over, and you're on to the next project. Which is sadly,
I can't believe it's that short.
For many.
That's wild. Like 2 or 3 days. That really is a
2 or 3 days is for a lot of companies. I mean, obviously not for companies like Sennheiser.
Right,
and
right.
We don't operate this way too, and but other do a week to design a headphone or to do the acoustic design of the headphone. Then you can only what Critical is calling a mass market response or something.
Oh, looks like for whatever reason,
it's
YouTube
not just you.
stream it has.
Oh no, I think it came back. No.
Did it come back?
Technical difficulties occurring. I think you were dropping a couple of packets there just a second ago. No, wait, no, I think it's back now. Sorry, guys.
Sorry about this, guys. It's we got internet issues.
internet problem.
Yeah. If it
that might actually help. I didn't even realize.
No, it's pretty low. Oh, we're back in the green.
Oh, are we?
We're back in the green. Yeah.
I think the stream is yes. Wait, it's going at like 1 FPS.
Oh yeah, it is. It's weird.
Oh wait, no, it's good. They have like a studio emulation mode now where you take a picture of your ear and it tunes your HRTF. I'm serious, this was added. And then on top of that, they've characterized some studios or something.
No, I'm gonna have to read up on that.
So well, I know that I was talking to Sankar about that, and he was talking about how that was the original goal, was to be able to represent the way certain studios sound for creators and stuff. So you could go somewhere, and then that would be the way that it would sound if you were actually in the studio.
Oh, we're back and talking about Reveal Plus here randomly.
Yeah, we're back. We're back live. Sorry about that, guys. We had a bit of a internet issue, but it looks like everything is working. So we'll just get back on track here. What were we talking about? I think actually Metal571 was saying something, and so I'm just going to put you on the spot again and say, why don't we take it from what you were saying?
Yeah, I honestly have no idea where we were before we stopped,
You
but
complained about not having engineers have enough time to develop
yeah,
the
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Someone
that
will
was
let go.
definitely earlier. That's just the way like kind of companies work, unfortunately. We always want to,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing in software. Everyone's trying to perfect everything over and over and over, but you can't spin forever, or else the customer doesn't get anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. There's also a thing you cannot leave it in the hands of the engineers forever, because they will keep finding ways to improve it. But
Yeah.
you also mustn't take it away from them too early, because you remember the K8 to 12.
Yeah, because then you end up with
With that.
K12. I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I can say that now. Yeah.
I think by now you can say that. Yeah.
I mean, I never worked for AKG, right? So I have no contract with AKG, so I can talk shit about them all I want.
And apparently
How
you can
about,
praise the 371 too, because that's not even really AKG though anymore.
That's not an AKG headphone, man.
that's Harman.
AKG for me is the Vienna group.
It's now
Yeah,
Austrian Audio.
K240 and 701 and
Who's
stuff like
now
that.
Austrian Audio mostly, yeah.
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 I haven't heard any of those. The
Yeah,
Austrian
me
Audio.
either.
Yeah, me neither. I've been trying to get a sample from them, and
Yeah, the
I talked to them
X55,
like
I
a
think
year
it
ago.
is.
They was like, yeah, okay, we're gonna send you one, and still haven't gotten anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we're talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, someone says that Reveal Plus is more interesting than engineers not having a tough time. All right, actually, I guess that not that many people probably know about this, considering Oratory had not even heard about this. But
I don't know anything about Real Plus yet. I'm
yeah,
searching for it on the website.
yeah, so their plugin, classically the Odyssey plugin here, would tune the frequency response to a preset EQ, but with Reveal Plus, it's pretty different now. Now you can take a picture of your ear and submit it, and an AI will tune the HRTF of that picture. And then on top of that, they've got emulation of studios that they've, I guess, characterized. Shankar probably knows more about this, obviously, than I do, but it's pretty crazy. And this is kind of where we're going, I think, with audio, more DSP and AI stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway.
So, yeah. Well, I mean that's a good segue into. I wanted to ask about your stance on EQ. Obviously, Oratory.
I'm reading
is...
the chat.
Okay.
The Oratory EQ.
Guys, that's not what I do. That's my least favorite
Okay,
thing
here's
to do,
yeah.
to make equalizer settings.
Now is the opportunity to clarify your position on EQ and how all that stuff works for you.
Okay, here's the thing. EQ is awful, but it's also awesome. Nah, man, EQ is a tool like anything else. If you've ever been in a recording studio, EQ is the first thing that anybody uses. So it's a tool to shape sound, and that's what you do with it. I'd much prefer to have headphones that don't need EQ, and yeah, if I was given the chance to, if my boss says, okay, you now design a headphone, you have 2.5 years time. That's what I was going for, what I would be going for. But the reality is that most headphones still can be improved with EQ. So that's what I do when I personally wear a headphone. If you don't want to do that, fuck if I care. Sorry, can we curse in that podcast?
Yeah, sure.
We've
Cool.
done that before.
I don't care if you use EQ or not. That's not what it's about. If you like how it sounds, that's cool with me. And also, you don't have to impress me with your choice of headphone, right? So if you like your headphones, cool. If I like my headphones, that's also cool. Just listen to whatever you want. But also, we know that most headphones don't sound how you want them, and most of those deficiencies can be at least somewhat remedied with the use of filters.
When doing EQ, do you think that is there a limit to what you're able to do with EQ? Is there a physical limit? So, for example, for the driver itself, the transducer itself.
Yeah, so that's of course a rhetorical question, because obviously, yeah, of course there's a limit.
Yeah.
There's always limits. Acoustics, as one of my mentors taught me, acoustics is always about finding a compromise. You cannot get a perfect solution for anything, especially not in acoustics, and anything you do in acoustics is always a compromise. So if you use EQ, cool, then you're gonna have to deal with the fact that you're now stuck with having to use an EQ, because you cannot use an EQ everywhere. If you wanna use it with an iPhone, then you cannot use an EQ, because iPhones don't have the possibility for that. Which I don't want to get into this discussion about iPhones, but Right. So EQ is a crutch, but on some headphones it works.
Yeah. So for EQs, I guess. I know that a lot of people will use your presets.
Right.
For anybody who doesn't know, Oratory's EQ presets for I don't even know how many headphones this is now. It's available on Reddit and just
Many
multiple places. Many, yeah. And essentially what these ones do is they get it. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they get it fairly close to the preference curve there. Do you find that when you're doing that though, that like is there a point at which you say, okay, maybe this headphone can't do the bass shelf that you might want it to have?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So the question: Do headphones have inherent limits of what you can do with EQ? Of course they have. Everything has limits, and it's just a matter of how much can you push that compromise into delivering more audio quality at the expense of in the case of EQ having to use more electric power, for example. Because with digital EQ, all you can do is reduce the gain. You cannot really push gain because you want to avoid the clipping. So in the end, you're going to have to use a more powerful amplifier just to get to the same level. So there you have a compromise of having to use more electric power, a more powerful amplifier in order to get potentially better sound, or not. I mean, if you fuck up the EQ, that's going to sound bad. So do headphones have limits? Yeah, headphones have limits. Electrostatic transducers have less distortion because of the way that the force field works. It's linear over a longer excursion limit, so they can excurse further. But they also have very strong limits as soon as they reach that limit, then the diaphragm is stuck against the stator and it doesn't really move anymore, and you have to disconnect it before it works again. With an electrodynamic headphone, the physical limit is where the voice coil hits the bottom of the magnetic gap, which is a physical limit, because if this happens, then something's going to break or deform. But you will probably never reach this limit, because before the voice coil excurses as far as to reach that bottom, it will leave the magnetic gap mostly, or will leave the high magnetic flux area, so it will actually not be driven that far out, but it will distort, which is not dangerous to the loudspeaker to a certain limit, but it's going to sound bad.
Right.
Planar headphones have other limits as to their high frequency extension. So yeah, everything has limits, of course. And this is the thing that when I try to use, or when I find myself needing to use EQ to fix certain flaws, how far can we push before something like distortion becomes audible, and does it actually improve something or not? Like, good example of this is of course the HD600, which most people will be familiar with. How much can you push the bass on that? Actually, not a lot. Most of the time, I mean, of course, I can create an EQ preset, which in theory brings the frequency response to a certain target, and one would assume that this now sounds better. But on the HD600, honestly, I don't think there's much to be improved with EQ. It's an amazing headphone that's earned every part of its reputation, but it's not perfect, right? But as to how much you can improve his bass response with EQ, as in with a static filter, not a lot, because there's not too much wrong with its bass response other than the obvious lack of sub bass.
Right.
But of course, I can push the sub bass with a filter, which if you look up the filter setting, this is what the filter setting does. But for my taste, and this is introducing too much distortion, which on paper it's barely scratching the threshold of audibility, but in the end what matters is what it sounds like to me or to you, and to me it's starting to distort or change the sound in a way that I don't really like. So when I use an HD600, I don't really EQ it at all.
Yeah.
Or rather, I use a different headphone, which sounds better. If people have an HD600 and ask me, okay, so how do I set up the EQ for this? I'm like, well, why do you want to set up an EQ with that?
You need to listen to it first, dude.
Yeah.
So you do listen to when you're, for all the EQs that you do as well, you do listen to it
whenever
as well.
possible. So
yeah.
Sometimes there's people telling me, okay, so can you add an EQ for this and this headphone? And I'm like, how? I mean, I don't have this headphone here, so how do you expect me to do? And they're like, yeah, okay, but Clinical has measured it, so I can send you the frequency response, and you can do an EQ. And sure, I do that because if it helps them, and if they tell me then it sounds better to them, then sure, makes them happy. But I cannot do it with while listening. But this is
Right.
not the majority of use cases. And if you look at the bottom left of all the PDFs, it says measured by Critical, measured by who else, or it says measured, with the equipment that I have. And most of those, the vast majority are measured by me, and the EQ is also done with me having the headphone on my ear and listening to it. And if it sounds better, then cool. If it doesn't sound better, or if a particular filter brings it towards a target response but doesn't actually make it sound better, then I write optional, or I just leave it out, because in the end, if it sounds good, then cool.
One of the things that I found interesting about your EQ methods has been the way that how meticulous it is. Like, so for example, when I'm doing EQ for something, I'll just use fairly conservative values, and I'll use fairly wide Q values, using like PCUI and stuff like that. But yours are very, very precise. Like, they're very much like, this is what it needs to be in order to get to the desired preference curve, or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
Do you think for people who are doing their own EQs, do you think it's like, what do you think is the optimal approach for getting there?
For people like me, or people like somebody else?
The average person doing their own EQ, for example.
That sounds snobby. I don't like that. So, of course, the average person, if they use EQ, then EQ is not. It seems intuitive, but it's really not easy to use. And it takes audio engineers, people who create and record music. It does take them a few months, so maybe years, to really know how to dial in EQ and how to learn that. It does take some time. And I mean, I've been through that. I've spent my years in recording studios. I've learned how to use EQ, and on top of that, I programmed my own tool that shows me the graph and shows me what the corrective curve should look like. Then I recreate it with EQ. Then I put it onto the DSP, and then I listen to it. And then we're like, yeah, okay, this doesn't sound right at all. So I continue to change it, and I change some mostly gain values, try to find out the resonances. If I then find out then this is one of the resonances that maybe change with the shape of the head, then I don't EQ it at all, because it doesn't work. If I just EQ it in my head, it's not going to work in somebody else's head. If I see that the measurement shows a resonance peak somewhere which is the same in my head and it's the same on other heads as well, then I use EQ to filter it out, because it's going to be mostly the same for other heads. If I know that something, for example, the region above 10 kilohertz, I never really use peaking filters, meaning for a limited bandwidth, because the region above 10 kilohertz is so random for everybody else. On a standardized head, you can measure it on a different standardized head and you get different results. Then you measure it on my head or somebody else's head, and it's going to give you an even more different result. So there's really no way that you can predict how you should EQ that. So which is why I only use shelving filters for the region above that.
Yeah.
Or I don't EQ it at all.
Yeah. Well, that's been my experience as well. Is like you can't use super narrow peak filters, for the super high frequencies.
You can, but you can only use it on your head. So
exactly.
So of course, for the headphone that I'm wearing, I know that there's one particular headphone that has a resonance at 16 point something kilohertz. When I wear it on my head, and this is what I notch out with a very, very narrow notch filter. But it makes no sense for me to tell you the value for this notch filter, because in your head it will be very differently, or it will be the same. I can't really predict that.
Right.
That's not possible.
Right.
So as for the methodology, I give it a first shot with a mostly automated algorithm that gives you a first idea, and then I changed most of it again manually. So in the end, it ends up being like, I don't know, 90% manual.
And when you're so with the algorithm, it's it basically just looks at deviations from.
You probably shouldn't call it an algorithm. It takes the graph, subtracts the target response, inverts it, and then shows it to me on a display. And I'm like, okay, so this is what the EQ should look like if it's going to bring it to the target response. Then I listen to it, and I'm like, okay, but if I add this much as it says on the graph, then it's gonna sound awful. So I'm gonna add a little less, and then I try it out, and then I fine tune it manually. So my EQ settings are not made by an algorithm; they're made by hand.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
I guess it's more like auto EQ then, because I know that guy, what's his name, Jacko or whatever.
Jaco Kasanen. His I believe is completely automated.
Yeah, his is completely
before
automated, but
before
I
he
think
went
you're
online, and he asked me what things I consider when I do manually cue like that, and
how it sounds.
so which aspects he needs to put into his algorithm, so what the algorithm should look out for, and we went on about that. But there's only so much that that I'm able to put into words. You know, I should avoid narrowband narrowband filters with a high positive gain. In some frequency regions, you shouldn't use peak filters above 10K. You should things like that. And he implemented most of that, but it's still an automated process, which to my mind, or from my perspective, of course, if you ask me, then my approach is better. If you ask him, then I'm sure he's going to say his is better.
Yeah.
In the end, it doesn't really matter. Try them out both, and whatever you like both, adjust it to your preference, and then go with that.
Right. So, I mean, for the EQ presets, a message would be to use them as starting points.
The stream is
Yeah. Oh shoot. Oh man, this is like.
Are you recording this or just land?
No, I'm just streaming it. I can't record it, unfortunately.
Right. Okay.
What I do is I normally stream it and then I pull audio. But it's just the internet is just not. I can't tell if it's my internet because my internet seems to be fine, but it might just be YouTube's ingest is giving us problems.
Well, Discord is dropping a little bit too.
Oh, is it? Okay.
At least on my end.
I'm still hearing you guys perfectly fine.
Yeah, I hear you guys perfectly fine. So I don't know what's going on.
Oh, maybe it's just your upload.
It could be.
That's probably why it didn't show up in speed test.
Speed test does upload as well, though.
So everyone is saying voice is okay. Is okay if you can hear us.
As long as the voice is okay, yeah.
Should we just shut off the video?
I don't know if the video should really make much of a difference. Let me
Actually, that's probably a lot more.
It's more bandwidth, but I'm looking.
I'm using a peasant standard keyboard, and I'm fine with it.
There are actually some pretty okay membrane keyboards. But it's just harder to find them.
Electrocapacitive stuff is really good.
Oh yeah, I haven't even tried that.
I have this. That's what I use. I got a stock keyboard of my Mac here, so call me a peasant if you want. I'm fine with that.
Well,
I think
looks
we're back.
Looks like we're better.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So sorry about the.
The sheet low-key hardware cue. Oh right, the low-key is a hardware cue. Right
now,
I know about this one. It's like a four-band
yeah,
EQ.
Fixed. Yeah.
I mean, so this is a fixed band EQ where the only thing you can change is the gain of 4 frequency bands, and you cannot change the frequency. You cannot change the bandwidth. You can only change the Q. This is only gonna give you a very, very broad change of the overall balance. As in, you can increase the overall bass, the overall treble, maybe some low mids and some high mids, but you cannot really target any of the flaws of the headphone. So, I mean, if you manage to find a setting that improves the sound for you, sure, go ahead. I don't have one, and I wouldn't get one, but if you like it, sure.
Yeah, it makes it. I mean, it's. I'd say it's
not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything that you couldn't do with PCQ, right? Or with.
Right. Well, they probably claim that because it's hardware, it's better, but.
Sure. I mean, it certainly looks a lot nicer than having a digital EQ. I'm not going to argue with that. Right?
Yeah, that's too.
Looks account for like 30% of how much something is worth. According to some study.
We don't even think about that very much, but that's very true.
Yeah, I've read about that how good a headphone is. It's like 30% sound, 30% how it looks, and 30% how it feels.
30% how it looks and feels? Wow.
That's why HD800 is so good.
I personally like to very much disagree with that. For me, I like to think that it's 100% sound, but
that's just an engineer's perspective, right?
A little bit comfort.
I cannot pretend that I don't like pretty headphones.
Yeah.
A lot sound and a little bit comfort.
Well, see, I have here the
comfort is very important. Comfort is very important.
I have the MySphere here right now, and it's
oh, really?
Yeah, it's so disregarding the sound though, it's ridiculous enough looking that my girlfriend will not wear it. She like refuses.
Totally refuses.
I was like, try it out, we'll see how it sounds.
My wife liked them actually.
But some of them are fairly ridiculous looking, but for the most part. Okay, let's. I got a few questions to get us kind of back on track with what we're talking about. I wanted to get your take on some of the. I mean, I ask everybody this stuff, but in your mind, where do where does detail come from when we talk about like a LCD4 or Sesvara or some of these crazy high end planar headphones where the detail's clearly better than the lower end stuff,
Right.
and then that goes into EQ as well. I mean, is it possible to I think I know the answer to this already, but do you think it's possible to EQ any of that to match the high end headphones?
Right. So the question is, where does detail come from? So I got a question for you. What is detail? What does the headphone do that makes you say, okay, this has more detail?
Yeah. So again,
that is, I think, the real question. Because a lot of times people ask me, okay, how do you accommodate for, I don't know, pace, rhythm, and timing? And then my answer is not, okay, this is, I don't know, 650 hertz. No, my answer is, what does a headphone do when it, or what makes you think that this headphone has more pace, rhythm, and timing, more detail? What are you listening for? What are you hearing that makes you say more detail?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
No, yeah, Pratt. I don't get the whole Pratt thing. Like,
the only thing for me that I know about Pratt,
I don't think anybody uses that
response, which was amazing, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I've read it. I read it on a infidelity review, on a very old one, where he was like, I don't know what Pratt is, but these headphones, they have it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't know what it is either, but sure.
Oh no.
So if I'm going to characterize detail, I like to use the analogy of the metal gate, where it's like it's image clarity, right? So if you're looking through a window at an image, how clear is the image?
Right.
And if you listen to a Sennheiser HD 800S, or let's go all the way up to the high end like LCD4 and Sesvara. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think you could EQ let's say, I don't know, like a lower end headphone. Pick a lower end headphone, right? I don't think even like a Sundara or something like that. I don't think you could EQ that to match the LCD4 or the. You might be able to match it in terms of tonality, but maybe not for detail. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
No, of course you can't. You cannot paint a Honda to perform like a Ferrari, because
exactly.
Paint changes, the sound. Paint changes the color. EQ changes, the frequency response. Paint doesn't make a car go faster unless you're into Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
If you got
I
that
actually
reference.
got that. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not into Warhammer, but my coworker isn't. He tells me to make that reference. So, EQing a detail into a headphone. If you think about. This isn't how EQ works. EQ doesn't take away or add detail, at least not in the way that what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
But can you make a headphone sound, clearer? Absolutely. If there's always a big if. So if the headphone sounds clearer after EQ, then there was some acoustically speaking, but it's gonna sound better than before. So it's not about making every headphone sound the same, because that's not possible. Nobody's claiming that this is possible.